Hell with Vince McMahon. I don't need him.
Radiation is a curious thing. No one expects what it would bring.
I've heard Quinn say it several times. I need you to be Paul Atlas tonight. What does that mean to you when you hear that?
What that means is they want a prick in the locker room who's just going to basically tell people what it is, how it is, and if that means throwing a chair across the fucking locker room to get your point across, then you'll do that. Because that's kind of how it was. As much heat as I would get for being an asshole, I was kind of an asshole. I still am kind of an asshole. I've gotten older, so sometimes, as you age, you get a little more mellow. But that asshole is still there, So when Quinn says I need Paul Atlas, it means there's a situation where somebody's not getting it and they need to get it right now. And usually that's where they need me to be the guy to do it.
I know you said earlier, you've run into that guy's an asshole, that guy. But rarely across the board do you hear about a person in an area like you that is sort of universally respected. Not everybody likes Paul Atlas, but everybody really respects Paul Atlas. Why do you think that is?
I think because I am no bullshit. I'm going to, if you ask me how your match was and it sucks, I'm going to tell you it sucked. If your match was good, I'm going to tell you it was good. I'm going to tell you the good and the bad. And when you work with me in the ring, I'm going to do everything I can to keep you safe and protect you, and I expect the same back. And we're going to have a great match. So, yeah, okay, maybe I'm an asshole, but when it comes to performance, when you go through that curtain, whether I like you, don't like you, I'm pissed off at you, whatever, I may hate you as a human being, but if we're booked to work that night, we're going to go out there and we're going to work like nothing's ever happened. Now, when we come back through the curtain, I'm going to be like, fuck you, but while we're under those lights, it's all business.
So you were a trainer for a long time here in Pittsburgh. It's certainly a different day today as far as the newest generation. So my question is sort of twofold. Do you think your style of training could still work today? And secondly, what do you think of today's particular young generation of wrestlers?
Do I think my style would work today? Probably not.
Why?
Because we live in the era of every kid gets a trophy. You're not allowed to ruffle their feathers. You should just show them what to do and be nice about it. And no, I'm not wired that way. If you're going to be in this business, you need to know how to do it, and you know how to do it safely. And you should also know the difference between somebody shooting on you and somebody just working tightly on you, and you should take it seriously. And that rolls into the next. I don't know how serious some of these kids are today, just because of that very reason. I think a lot more look at it as more of a hobby. I see on their social media pages all the time, wrestling is my passion, wrestling is my life. But then on show nights, you don't see them here. Mm-hmm. Or you see them at the fair instead of on a wrestling show. Well, if wrestling is your passion, or wrestling is your life, you can say that when you've done some of the things you and I have done. When you've missed birthdays, you've missed special events in your family, or you've driven all the way to North Carolina in 8 hours, done a 10-minute match, and deadhead back to Pittsburgh because your daughter's birthday is the next day, and you need to be there for that. Mm-hmm. When you've done that kind of stuff, or you've driven deadheaded home so you can get to work the next day because you're not making a living in professional wrestling, when you do things like that, when you put wrestling at the forefront of all the other stuff and you start to miss events in your life, I missed my daughter's first prom because we had a show in Hastings that night and I was the booker. I had to be there.
I missed tons of I for whatever reason, for quite a few years, PWX would run the same night that my daughters had prom as well. So I would get to see pictures of them driving away. And
my daughter's very first prom I missed for that very reason. I was the booker. I had to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And I missed it.
Do you think, and maybe this is just me thinking out loud, but do you think that lack of passion but the training being softened has sort of allowed people in the business that maybe wouldn't have been in the business, 20 years, 30 years ago, whenever we started.
Without a doubt.
And how do you fix that?
The only way you can fix it is to really, and I don't want to sound like the crotchety old man, but you need to go back to the old ways. You don't smarten them up right away. You stretch them out, and if they leave, they leave. Who cares?
Yeah.
You want to leave my school? Fine. Just remember, there's no refunds. And if you get back to that's where you find out who really wants to be a professional wrestler and who watches it on TV and thinks it's pretty cool and I think I could do that.
Mm-hmm. You probably have a bigger number than this, but I know whenever I ran my school for 7.5 years, I bet during that time I had 300 guys and women come and not make it past the first month.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I was brought up, TC, he beat the shit out of us.
Oh, I know. I've had many matches with TC.
He beat you, and I love that dude. I'm so thankful. At the time, I was like, this is ridiculous. What is this guy doing? But now, I'm so thankful that it weeded out the guys that didn't have passion. And whenever I look back on the guys that I trained, I'm so glad that we did it the way we did it because it weeded out the guys who didn't have passion.
Yes.
And, I think I'm pretty close to starting a school again. And, I may get in trouble for it, but I really think that when we do it, it's going to be the old school way. I mean, I'm not going to berate guys like maybe I used to, but the physical aspect of this is going to be very, very difficult. And if you can't do it, that's fine. I have no hard feeling, but don't waste my time.
Exactly. And, because, let's face it, you could end your life doing this in this business, literally.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not focused 100% and it's just something that you think it's cool to go to work or go to the bars on a Saturday night and tell your buddies, hey, I'm a wrestler, you don't belong in this business. Get the fuck out.
Sure. If you were to look over the last 25 years and you were to pick out maybe 2 or 3 or 5, whatever number you feel, who have been some of your favorite opponents that you've ever got to work with?
Probably the guy I loved working with was Lou Marconi.
Why?
We just had that chemistry. I never had a bad match with Lou. Never. We just had that factor that we could just look at each other, and people may say, what a fucking stupid statement to make, but I compare it to Flair Steamboat. We could just look at each other and know what we were going to do. Lou was great to work with, and like I said, I've never had a bad match with Lou. I loved working Lou.
If I know you're somebody, knowing you as long as I have, you're somebody that doesn't care about people that hate you. I'm sure there are some people out there that respect you but also hate you.
Sure.
And I'm sure you don't give two shits about those people. But if someone were to say, I hate Paul Atlas and this is the reason why, beyond being just, well, he's an asshole, what do you think some of the things that people have said about you that are maybe true, or things that if people have said about you that are untrue that really bother you?
Nothing tends to bother me because I guess part of being an asshole is you really don't care what people say or think about you. And I've always been that way. I don't care if you like me or don't like me. As long as I'm here doing the job I'm supposed to do, I could give two shits if you like me or not. And I think a lot of that is probably the reason why people would say the stuff they've said about me in the past. Like I said, I touched on some of it. Oh, he won't put anybody over. He's just an ass. Watch yourself against him. He's going to beat the fuck out of you, Kato. Because it's just no bullshit. I've just never been that type of person, and my father was that type of person. I think I get that from him. Just no bullshit. I'm here. I'm doing a job. If you don't like what I'm doing, I don't give a shit. So things people say about me don't bother me. Mm-hmm. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I know there's probably been a lot of people in this business who have been nice to my face and talk shit behind my back. And I just don't care. I just really don't care. At the end of the day, as long as the people running the promotion who brought me in, who paid me money to give their fans a show, got what they wanted, got what they paid for, I could give two fucks less about what the locker room thinks.
So this is my favorite part of these type of interviews. I do something called word association, where I'll drop a name to you, and you can give me 10 words or 1,000 words, if you feel up to it, about this particular person or subject. So we're going to start off right off the bat with Quinn Magnum.
Quinn is a very passionate person about this business. He's come leaps and bounds from the day he first stepped into my wrestling school. He was one of the two, like I told you, him and Brandon, that I looked at and said, these guys are going to be something in this business. Quinn would work there. Quinn was spitting blood in the parking lot during a training session. I didn't know this at the time because he wouldn't let me know that, so he could come back in and continue training. He just has done so much. He's never made it to the big stage, and a lot of people say, well, if you've never made it to the big stage, you've never made it in this business. That's bullshit. I mean, like I said, the guy runs his own company right now. That you don't get that without having a passion for the business. You don't get that without having a love for the business, and Quinn has that. And he's got a great mind for the business. He's taken the time to do his homework on the business. So he is in my top two as far as all the students I've ever trained.
Okay, how about Norm Connors?
Norm and I probably always had a love-hate relationship. But it was also a situation where, again, we didn't like each other, but if we were in the ring doing something together, it was business.
Why did you guys like each other?
I don't know why he didn't like me. I kind of didn't like him because I didn't like the way he did things when it pertained to me. I always thought he talked out of both sides of his face. This goes back to even before he was involved in PWX. He actually became involved in PWX because of me. We had some guys who, and you've touched on this before with other people, who left, and they went off to start their own promotion. So we needed guys. So I called Lou, and he had a partner. His name was Frank Stiletto. And I said, would you guys be interested in coming into PWX, doing some shows? And he said, that's great, I'd love to, but Norm was running Steel City Wrestling at the time. I want to make sure it's okay with Norm. I got no problem with that. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how Norm got involved. So to get back to it, I would see Norm out and about, and I had done a show or two for him under Steel City Wrestling, and he'd always be like, yeah, man, I'm going to get you on my next couple shows. I'll get a hold of you. He never did. So it was kind of like, yeah, you got a lot of bullshit, and fuck that. I don't need that shit.
Okay. Here's a name maybe people only my way will really have interest in your answer here, but I'm going to ask it. Troy Fritz.
Troy Fritz is a unique individual. And I know you had gotten a hold of me and you said, hey, no heat, but Troy asked me to book. Troy didn't get it. When we ran DCW together, I wanted to run things the way you should run them. Hey, we need dates out there. We need to lock down guys. Because we decided at the last minute we were going to run that year. We decided in December to start running in January. A lot of guys had their dates already. So they were just looking for fill-in dates. So it's like, I got to have to. Oh, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out next show. He never had a plan to do anything. And it drove me crazy. And I don't understand where he comes from sometimes. And the way I saw it, and I have nothing against this at all, but it was like we were trying to run a wrestling promotion, but Troy wanted to run a church because he was very religious. And I'm okay with that. That you want to be religious, that's your thing. But don't cram it down other people's throats. Don't go out there and, you can use it as a gimmick if you want to, but it was more than a gimmick to him. He's a very religious man, and I'm okay with that. But I just thought he ran things so lackluster, and everything was about, talking to the Vietnam vets and getting his religion in, and it was just like, we can't do this. And we just basically came to the impasse of, this is not going to work. And there was a confrontation about it, not a physical confrontation, a verbal confrontation. And I guess he took some things that myself and Curtis Stevenson, who was involved too, said to him, He didn't really like what we said to him. Got extremely shitty with us. We all owned the ring together. So we were like, well, 2/3 of that ring is ours. When we're gonna come up and get our 2/3 of the ring unless you're paying us. Oh, I'll have you guys in the Cambria County Jail. I said, fine, you'll be hearing from my attorney. No, fuck you. Here's my attorney's number. So we called. Curtis called the attorney, and Troy ended up paying because he didn't have a leg to stand on. Mm-hmm. So it just got really bad because I just don't think he understood.
Yeah, he's a unique character, that's for sure. I know, for whatever reason, I feel like he hates me with a passion, and I'm not sure what I did to that guy.
I can tell you he does, because the funny thing is 2 weeks before that, he was telling me how he was going to get rid of you because he didn't like the shit with power wrestling.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I don't. He's just not wired very well, I don't think.
Okay, yeah. I mean, power wrestling wasn't mine, so I don't
exactly.
know why. I don't know why
I guess
he
there
was
was some
upset
talk
with
of
me.
exchanging talent or something like that, and
I don't know.
Like, we're going to get rid of Kato. All right, hey,
Your
your name's on the license, dude. Do whatever you want.
At one time, that town of Hastings was brilliant. I mean, it was a great town to wrestle.
Oh, I
in front
was
of.
there for some of those shows.
They had great fans. The first time he ran in that little building, he had almost 500 people in that building. I mean, it was a brilliant, and it's sort of a shame that by the end it
the
trailed
wrong
off
crowd
to
came in
50
with
people.
the North American Tag Team Championships
Yeah.
into that building. I mean, and those crowds were amazing.
Yeah,
And they loved the show. They loved the wrestling. But I also think that a lot of that died because of the way Troy ran the town.
Yeah.
So
How about let's move on to the next one. We talked about him a little bit already, but how about Brian Anthony?
he's my brother. Not everybody knows that. A lot of people do. There has been some issues with Brian and I. We haven't spoken for years. I'm not really going to get into those.
I didn't know that. I'm sorry to hear that.
That's okay. And I know not a lot. Not a lot of people know. But when we were in there as the wrong crowd, we could do no wrong. I'm never going to take that away from it. Some of the best times I've had has been being as a member of the wrong crowd. But that's probably about as far as I'm going to go with that.
Okay. Well, yeah. Sorry, I didn't bring up a sore spot.
That's
I just,
okay.
I know that wrong crowd had a incredible
and it's something
run.
that should be talked about. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
And it was incredible. Both runs that we had. We actually had two. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I didn't know.
Yeah, we had the one in the early stages of PWX TV, where we were tag team champions for over 18 months, and that's where we got a lot of the bullshit. You know, why they won't put people up. We would put people over. It's just you didn't get a pinfall over us because the story was we kept the belts no matter what. Mm-hmm. And then we had the run as the North American Tag Team Champions, and that kind of ended. That kind of ended special in a very weird way.
Okay.
When we won the belts, well, what happened is the NWA got their belts back from TNA. Finally, after umpteen years, which, you know, the NWA at the time of when all that happened, they thought, oh, this is going to be our jumping off point, and they just worked them and took their shit and ran. So when the belts were coming back, a guy by the name of Bob Trovich was an attorney, took over the NWA, and his second in command was a man by the name of David Marquez. He's a TV guy out in California, and they got the belts back. So I was still here at NWA East at the time, and Brian got a hold of me and said, hey, the belts are coming back. What do you think? All right, let's do it. Let's try it. Let's see what we can do. Because we wanted to, the first time we tried to make a run at the tag champions, and for whatever reason, probably mostly politics, it never came to fruition. So, all right, we'll give it a shot again. So they ended up bringing in the Old School Express, Preston Quinn and Mike Booth, who were the North American Tag Team Champions at the time. And we brought them in here, and we did a 20-minute Broadway with them that just tore the house down. So then I guess they had their convention shortly after that. And Jim, from what I understand, made a pitch, and the board voted to get us the tag team belts. So there was some, not negotiating, but finagling, trying to get them them back together with us. We tried to bring them up here, and something one way or another happened. So finally, we got a date set, and I was in Osaki, North Carolina, that we were going to do the deal. We did the deal, and we got the belts. And all this time, you're hearing, like, Trobich and Marquez and all them are saying, you know, we really want the NWA to rise again and be something. And you were running into the typical promoters, you know, I mean, they didn't want to pay this kind of stuff. You know, we'll give you some money for gas. And it was like, we're not going to make these long drives. So we did a lot of it around here. And then finally it came to where it was time to drop the straps, which we were fine with. And we ran into the same situation. Okay, we want you guys to come to Michigan and drop the straps. Okay, who's paying us? Well, I know who's paying the other guy. Okay, well, who's paying us? And what are we getting to come in? We weren't getting any answers. So finally we were like, we're not doing it. I'm not going to drive to Michigan on my own dime. It's just not going to happen. You send them here. We'll gladly drop the belts. That's not the issue. Send them here. Well, we're going to need plane tickets. Wait. You're going to need plane tickets? You want us to drive up on our own dime, but you need plane tickets to drive to get them to us. Fuck you, whatever. So we cut the infamous UPS promo. We were in Brian's living room with the belts and basically told the NWA, we are not going to travel for $50 and a ham sandwich. You can have these things back. And we dumped them into a box. Curtis was our manager. He taped the box up, and across the screen we put, here's your tracking number, FAQ NWA. Fade to black. Well, you would not believe the phone calls we got after that. A couple of noticeable names too. Carl Anderson got a hold of us. He says, dude, I've just been in Japan. He worked with Dave out in California. He said, I don't know what the fuck happened. Marquez is pissed. Go to this link. Holy fuck. Mike DiBiase, Ted's other son, he was the North American champion at the time, working out in Nebraska. So you guys just said what every one of us is thinking out loud, because this is the kind of shit that was going on. Mm-hmm. Well, they were pissed, but it's like, we're giving you a ready-made angle now. Let's do something with it. Oh, just get them off them. They told you, just get them off of them. I don't care how. So Sterling James Keenan and Brandon Kay, Corey Graves and Brandon Kay, dropped the straps to them, and we did it right. Again, Paul Atlas is an asshole, but they went over, we went and grabbed the belts. Congratulations, gentlemen. This is not an NWA we want to be part of. Please have a good life. We're out. Mm-hmm. And we left.
Wow, crazy. All right, well, talk about another local guy, Crusher Hansen.
Crusher is a great guy. He really is. He's had his share of health issues, which I'm glad he's been able to overcome. Always had good matches with Crusher. He gets the business. You know, he wasn't trained by me, but he trained with me. He started training with B.A. Briggs, and when B.A. left, they kind of would hang around my school, and we would help them out, help them learn a bit. He learned the business the right way. Okay. How
about Shirley Doe?
Shirley Doe's fantastic. He's got a mind like no other for this business. And it's kind of funny, though, because when he first started in the business, he was kind of a mark for Japanese wrestling. I'm sure he still is, but we were doing something for TV with him and another guy in a tag situation, and he would be like, I'm going to do the Okinawa Sushi. What the fuck are you talking about, dude? Just calm down. Listen to what we say out there. Do what we say out there. And after the match, Doe was like, it's probably the best match I ever had. And I didn't know what the fuck we were going to do. And he kind of learned from there. And he's trained a lot of great talents that have come out of Pittsburgh as well. But he's got that mindset. He's got that old school mentality. And he's been able to adapt it to stay relevant in this business as long as he had. And that's the big thing there. You've got to be able to adapt. You got to understand. I mean, I'm old school as hell, and I claim I'm, I can be the crotchety old man, but I get that everything has to evolve, and Shirley Doe understands that too.
Another guy, you talked about him a little bit, Brandon Kay.
Brandon is my other star student, and Brandon's doing great things down there at Ryse. I'm down there as well. He's recently added me to their announce team. He's doing something. He's doing his own thing down there, which is kind of nice. He's bringing in a lot of young talent, a lot of guys who have a lot of potential. Tries not to get involved in the bullshit. He's always been a great wrestler. He's another one of those guys who I've never had a bad match with. Never had a bad match with Brandon.
Okay. Last one, Jim Miller.
Jim Miller. Everybody sighs when you say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, to be running as long as Jim has, he has to be doing something right. So, he obviously has that going for him, that he's doing something right. I've always felt that PWX, Fight Society, NWA East, whatever you want to call it, could be a really, really big thing. And sometimes Jim will shoot himself in the foot, and that doesn't happen. But that's because he's a very passionate, bullheaded individual. And he sees something and it has to be done his way. And sometimes that's not always the best way to do it, but he sticks to his guns to the very last minute, and sometimes that causes the bottom to fall out of things. I think he could have made this place a big-time player, not just in Pittsburgh, but even outside of Pittsburgh. If sometimes he could just open that screen a little bit and look at the big picture.
What do you think the concept of Fight Society? How do you like it, and how do you feel like it compares to, say, PWX NWA East?
PWX was the ground floor, obviously, and PWX tried to be like every other wrestling promotion. Try to do things the wrestling way.
Mm-hmm.
NWA East tried to do things the old NWA way, but the concept of the NWA at that point in time was never going to work like it used to, because you had a lot of little promoters who weren't full-time promoters, who didn't have the money to be full-time promoters, and also could never get along on anything. Everybody wanted their own shit to be in the forefront, so PWX and NWA East always did their own thing and tried to stay away from some of that bullshit. Then we went back to PWX for a while and tried to continue on. I think some people got soured on PWX as it was, both workers and fans, because there's a lot of the bullshit that went on over the years, people leaving, people coming and going, as far as the talent and all the different stories. And I always compare those stories to the third grade classroom. The teacher tells Johnny a story, and by the time it goes around the room and gets over here to Peter, it's a completely different story. And a lot of those stories about PWX are just that. There's some truth to them, don't get me wrong, but I think they become distorted, and a lot of people soured on PWX. So the idea was, let's do something completely different. Let's try this Fight Club underground, and a lot of the thought behind it was this was all Quinn's vision. We just are kind of helping out with it. We're in a bad part of town. The building's not the greatest. Let's embrace that. Let's not pretend that we're at the Mellon Arena or PPG Paints Arena, or even that we're in a nice community center. We're not. Let's embrace that. And I like that idea. Give it that underground, old-school wrestling feel when they used to run in old dank armories and high school gyms and things like that. Obviously, it's been a learning curve. Some of the things that Quinn wanted to try, we had to tweak. They became confusing, not just for the fans, but for the workers. So when you come in and you work a Fight Society match, it's much different than working anywhere else because of the different rules. I think it gives it that realism feel that a lot of times wrestling's missing. You want to suspend belief. It kind of gives it that. It's like, hey, this isn't a wrestling match, it's a fight. you know. And if the workers pull that off, that's fantastic. So it's going to force some of these younger guys and even some of the older ones to try to work a little differently.
How do you get from where Fight Society is now, the size of the crowd, to fill this building? What do you think the steps are to make that happen?
We just have to continue to produce good shows with good talent and give quality matches and give them those storylines that want to pull people in. I think a lot of people are soured on wrestling as a product because WWE is more like a television show than a wrestling event. It's more episodic television. You know, it's not as, I don't want to say it's not as believable, but it's a little bit harder to suspend disbelief. Everybody knows it's a show. Everybody knows it's a movie. And if we can get back to that, those guys really fucking hate each other. Wow, they're really hitting each other. This is some good, compelling shit. I think we can start to draw more people into it.
We have covered a lot here. Anything else you'd like to add before we wrap it up?
No. I mean, we've touched on a lot of things.
Not everything.
But
a lot.
Some things I had forgotten about. But it's always enjoyable to listen to these, get other people's perspectives on the business, and I would say as an interviewer, you bring that out in people. You know, not just working you and kissing up to you, Kato.
Well, I
really enjoy watching the interviews.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You're the one then. You're the one. So I appreciate that. This has been great for me. We're going to wrap it up on this. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
This has really been great for me. Guys, girls, please stop having shitty matches. You're ruining my life.
Mine too.
And Paul's.